Okay, so good morning. I'm Councillor Philip Davis, and we'll be chairing the hearing of Subcommittee A of the Licensing and Public Protection Committee of Birmingham City Council. Before we start, could I ask you all to mute your microphones for the moment? That will improve sound quality while I talk about procedure. And if you can make sure your cameras are turned off, with the exception of committee members. Committee members will have their cameras switched on throughout the hearing. If everybody could make sure they've got the mobile phones on silent, ensure they're in a room or environment which is free from distractions, that'll help proceedings today. It's obviously very important that those attending the meeting and making a representation are able to hear me and the members of the subcommittee and officers. Any distractions could result in the meeting being suspended temporarily or to another time and date under the regulations for these types of meetings. I can confirm that this is a public meeting and is therefore being live streamed on the City Council's website in order that the general public can view it. The formal agenda is as follows. 1. Notice of recording webcasting. I advise the meeting to note that this meeting will be webcast for live or subsequent broadcast by the Council's meeting YouTube site, and that members of the press public may record and take photographs except where there are confidential or exempt items. 2. Declarations of interest. Members are reminded they must declare all relevant pecuniary and non-pecuniary interests arising from any business to be discussed at this meeting. If a disclosable pecuniary interest is declared, a member must not speak or take part in that agenda item. Any declarations will be recorded in the minutes of the meeting. 3. Apologies and notification of nominee members. There are no apologies submitted or substitute members. So can I welcome you to this hearing for an application in respect to the Vale Stores, 43 Church Vale, Handsworth, Birmingham, B20 3SG. Some further introductions then. As I said, I am Councillor Philip Davis. I chair this meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee today. With me are my colleagues, fellow councillors, Councillor Martin Straker-Welds and Councillor Bob Beecham. Also present in the meeting are the following officers: the Licensing Officer, Mr. Shahid Yasser, the Committee Manager, Ms. Katie Townsend, Committee Lawyer, Ms. Joanne Swampiller. And now the parties. We had an initial opportunity to identify you, but if you could confirm you're here. Firstly, the applicant or his representative. So I think that's over to you, Mr. Jadu. If you could just confirm you're here.
Yes, good morning.
Okay.
I'm here.
Okay, thank you. I understand you're joined by Mr. Gulshan Baji.
That's right. I'm joined by, it's Miss Gulshan Baig, and also Mr. Cleveland Williams.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Cleveland Williams. Okay, thank you very much for that. Now, those making representations, West Midlands Police, Mr. Huram Taj. Mr. Taj, are you there?
Morning, Chair. Huram Taj, West Midlands Police Licensing. I'm joined here by a member of the Labour team. I'll let them introduce themselves.
Morning, I'm pleased to say Rob Capella from the Lowes and East Sanders Naval Police team.
Okay, thank you very much. And from the City Council Licensing and Enforcement, Mr. Doug Wright. Mr. Wright?
This morning, Chair, I'm here as well, yeah.
Okay. And then we have someone who wants to make a representation as an individual member of the public, Mr. John Rose. Mr. Rose?
That's me, Councillor.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Now, at this stage, does any person making representations, this is largely addressed to the last three people I mentioned, wish to withdraw those representations at this stage of the hearing? Mr. Taj?
Negative from me.
Negative.
Okay, Mr. Rose. Okay, Mr. Wright?
No, I don't want to withdraw now.
Okay, the representations stand. Okay, back a little bit more about procedure. I assume all parties have read and understood the Licensing Committee's procedural rules sent out with the notice of today's hearing. Please note that given the nature of today's proceedings, I may at my discretion amend the procedural rules to reflect the fact that this meeting is taking place online, but want to assure you that all such amendments won't impact on the parties' right to a fair hearing. We use the chat function as part of this process today. I think you're all pretty familiar with this, no doubt, from your own computers. It's a speech bubble on the icon bar, and it allows you to obviously put down a view or draw attention to whatever you wish to do during the proceedings. You can, at the same time, if you want to get the attention of myself as chair, indicate verbally that you wish to speak at the appropriate time. Now, we normally confirm that we've all got access to chat, and we therefore all put our names into the chat function, and that's a very useful record for the officers who are also taking notes. So if you could go to the chat function and just put in your name, that would be very helpful. I'm just putting my name in now, and then we'll be able to continue the process. There we are. Okay, so if you want to keep that chat column open for the make sure I'm still, yep, okay, there we are. If you want to keep that chat column open for the entire duration of the meeting, that will help us communicate if there are any other problems. I don't think anybody's dialed in on audio telephone, so I'm assuming that we're all suitably connected through Microsoft Teams. And again, with the exception of subcommittee members, please keep your camera off unless you're the person speaking. If there's a problem with the bandwidth, we might ask everyone to turn the cameras off. But at the moment, everything seems to be functioning okay. Preliminary points. Now, again, I think this is really for the organisations that have made representations for you, Mr. Jadu, as a representative of the applicant. They're usually about procedure and so on. It's if people want to bring any evidence or whatever that we haven't seen and so on. So are there any preliminary points that anyone wants to raise?
Yes, Councillor John Rose.
Yes.
Puzzled when I asked for the papers concerning this application, all I got was two very thoughtful representations from West Midlands Police. I'm almost certain that I submitted a representation, and also a friend of mine, Mrs. Helga Eggstrom. They were not in the meeting pack. Just curious.
Well, we do get 2 or 3 sets of documents. So it might be that they're in a. Let me go to the
Clark.
committee clerk. Ms. Townsend, could you tell us? Can you help us with this?
Yeah, Chair, the agenda pack is on CMAS, and obviously you'll have seen all the representations and all the documents. We haven't had any issues our end, so I would think that it's all on there. I'm just going to double check now. Okay,
we've got a pack, Mr. Rose, certainly, which is pretty comprehensive. I'm just looking at it now, and it has a whole lot of information in it, including maps of the location, also representations made. So I'm pretty sure those documents you've mentioned are in there. But we obviously this is your opportunity here today to make verbal representations. So of course, if you wish, you can repeat what you said in the representations you made on paper.
Yeah. All my only remark is that this doesn't seem very civilian friendly. I don't know what SEMA is, and I don't recall any reference to it. Just a remark. It's not a
council database. No, okay. Well, thank you for that. It's the council database, and I can assure we have access to that, so we see all the documents brought together. You see, but it's also a publicly available streamed system on the council's website. But anyway, thank you for that.
Councillor,
Any other?
yes, just a quick point, Councillor. There are actually 5 representations which I need to address, but I noticed that representation 3 from Councillor Mahmood and also representation 4 from Edgar Ostrom. There is no evidence to back up what they're saying here, but and I will not be allowed the opportunity to ask any questions regarding these representations directly. So it's just from me, really, although the representations have been made, I see these as merely letters with no evidence. And I think that representation 3 and 4 should be disregarded because in terms of natural justice, we won't have an opportunity to ask them to substantiate it.
Well, that is 2 sorts of evidence, as you know, Mr. Jaddo, and there are the people directly here, and there's the written evidence. We look at it all, but of course we give it appropriate weight, and of course, hearing from people directly often has more weight than written submission. So I take your point.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. So if those are the preliminary procedural points, we'll now move on. Procedure, I'll just say a little bit more about procedure. The first licensing officer, Mr. Shahid Yasser, will present the report. Then, Mr. Jaddo, you'll be asked to present the case for Mr. Everton Williams' application. And again, that would be, you'll be given 20 minutes to do that. Next, those making representations will be invited to make their case. Again, they get approximately 20 minutes each to do that. So can I ask all parties to speak as slowly and clearly as they can, because the officers are taking notes by hand for the minutes, and the meeting is also being live streamed on the City Council's website. And again, if you can mute your microphone when it's somebody else speaking, that will avoid any distracting feedback. Okay, members of the subcommittee will be able to ask questions at any stage, but we'll try to do so at the conclusion of each presentation. Cross-examination by the applicants and those making representations will not be permitted unless the members consider it appropriate. Where questions are raised by members of the subcommittee or by those present, they'll do that by indicating the usual way to me or via the chat. Again, the chat function is there as a backup, as we say. Okay, legal advice. I need to point out that occasionally it may be necessary for the subcommittee to take advice. In my discretion, I may ask all parties to wait in the meeting or members and the relevant officers withdraw to take legal advice using a separate meeting within Microsoft Teams. We'll then return to this meeting and continue. Please note that if at any time the live stream being broadcast on the City Council website fails, I'll ask you all to mute your microphones and cameras and to stop speaking until the live stream is restored. If at any time the meeting goes into private session, the meeting manager will pause the live stream. Once the private part of the meeting is over, I'll then ask the meeting manager to confirm that the live stream has resumed before we continue. At the conclusion of the hearing, I'll invite all parties to make a brief closing submission. That's summing up it, basically, not new evidence. No decision will be taken until all the evidence has been heard. At the decision-making stage, the members and the relevant officers will withdraw in order to determine the decision. They'll go into a separate Microsoft Teams meeting. In the event that the members need to clarify any point, you'll be telephoned by the meeting manager. The members will then make their decision and you'll be notified of the decision of the subcommittee within 5 working days. So I hope that's clear in terms of process. So what I now propose is that I ask the licensing officer, Mr. Shahid Yasser, to present his report, please. Mr. Yasser.
Thank you, Chair. Everton Williams applied on the 15th of December 2021 to vary the premises licence for the Vale stores, 43 Church Vale, Handsworth, Birmingham, B23SG. Councillors, the purpose of the report before you today is to consider relevant representations that have been made in respect of an application to vary the premises licence, which seeks to extend the hours for the sale of alcohol for consumption off the premises to operate 24 hours Monday to Sunday. The premises wish to remain open to the public 24 hours Monday to Sunday. A representation has been received from West Midlands Police as a responsible authority, and it's attached to Appendix 1 of your report. A representation has been received from Birmingham City Council Licensing Enforcement as a responsible authority, and that's attached to Appendix 2 of your report. Representations have been received from other persons, and these are attached to Appendices 3 to 5 of your report. The application forms attached to Appendix 6. The current premises licence is attached to Appendix 7. There's also some site location plans at Appendix 8. Now, when carrying out its licensing function, a licensing authority must have regard to Birmingham City Council's Statement of Licensing Policy and the guidance issued by the Secretary of State under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003. The licensing authority is also required to take such steps as it considers appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objective. Councillors, the options which are available to you today are to grant the variation application, to refuse whole or part of the application, or to modify the conditions of the licence. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. So now, Mr. Jadu, you have the opportunity to speak for Mr. Williams and the application. So over to you.
Thank you and good morning. Mr. Williams has been the licensee there now for some 12 years. During his period of license, there have been no issues whatsoever there in terms of the conduct of his license. And then following public, have I dropped out?
No, we can hear you and we can see you as well, which is good. Can you hear me?
All right, great. It's all right. My screen, I can hear you. My screen's just gone blank, which is helpful. But no,
we can hear you clearly.
He has.
We can't hear you now. I think we may have lost Mr. Jadu.
Yes, we have, Chair. It might be an idea to pause the live stream.
Yeah, let's pause the live stream, please, until we can get Mr. Jadu back in. Okay. Okay, live stream has resumed. So back to you, Mr. Jadu, on behalf of Mr. Everton Williams, the applicant.
Right, I'm not too sure where we got to, but briefly, he's been there for 12 years as the licensee of the Vale stores, and following consultation with residents, they asked for the store to be open longer hours because of their working practices. These are the people that live locally. There are carers, etc., that live locally, and because of working hours, there are times when they need to get provisions locally and there's nothing available locally. 24-hour stores are located elsewhere within the Perry-Barr constituency, but none in the vicinity of Church Vale. As I've said, he's been there for 12 years. There's been no issues whatsoever. He's observed his licensing objectives. He keeps in front of the store clean and tidy. He has CCTV to provide extra security, which covers what is known as the triangle as well. He's complied with all his obligations under the licensing regulations, and it is notable that there are no representations have been made in terms of his conduct. It's a family-run business, and he does have standing in the community. The family, being a part of the Windrush generation, have been in that vicinity since 1963. I'm just going to call his brother Cleveland Williams now, just to share with us the family standing and the respect for the business in the locality. Cleveland.
Okay, I'm not sure whether I'm supposed to go live with the camera or so just, are you okay with me?
If you wish, the main thing is we can hear you, Mr. Williams. So,
okay, okay. All right. Everton Williams, my brother, and we're born in Robert Road, just around the corner from the Vale stores. And we like a community-based type family. We have it's like a Christian kind of family, and we know a lot of people in the surrounding area. We've never had any problems at all in the community, and we decided to open a shop just as a request by the locals. And whilst doing that, after 12 years, we've been having conversation with our customers, and the customers requested us to extend the hours because they're working in hospitals, or the frontline workers. They're saying the best time for them is actually times when everybody else is sleeping. Yeah, so we just decided to put in an application to cater for this. Yeah, and that's the basis of why we've come up with this idea. Yeah, and Desmond will explain all the bits and bobs behind it.
Okay, thank you, Cleveland, for that. The continuing a consultation, as we said, was done. Now, there is a list with almost 300 signatures, Chair, of local residents, and when I say local residents within that locality, Houghton Road, Putney Road, Grosvenor Road, Churchill Road, some even in Bow Desert Road, who have actually signed supporting this application. We did attempt to send it to the committee, but we were told it was too late. But I think it's only right to mention that over 300 local people have actually supported this application. And that consultation was conducted as well by Miss Begg, who will just explain what she's done so the committee is fully aware of that. So over to you, Gulshan.
Good morning. Hi there. I also work in a local school, so I know most of the families that live in that area. I also work in the shop. I've also gone door to door and spoken to some of these residents, and they're supporting, obviously, the petition that I've got them to sign. I've also been on Bow Desert Road. I've even spoken to the Lord Mayor of Birmingham, and he's also signed my petition as well. We also have an ex-police officer, retired sergeant, that lives on Robert Road, and I've spoken to him, and he's also signed my petition. He also knows the family very well, and has lived in that area for a long time. The shop is also supporting a lot of the Asian and the Black community. And it's also bringing the community together, I believe. So we have got a very strong connection with the community, with the Asians and the Caribbean. It's also a lot of families go to that shop as well with children. So we don't allow loitering outside the shop. There's no litter outside the shop. We do clean outside the shop anyway when the wind, that rubbish that blows from the wind, etc. It's more, to me, it's more a community shop than a convenience store. Everybody knows everybody. And, you know, there's a lot of children as well that come to that shop that also know me from the school. I've been there now over 6-7 years, and we've had no problems in that shop. We never had to ban anybody from the shop. There's nobody really causing any nuisance outside the shop. You know, everybody listens to everybody. Everybody actually has got, I've spoken to a lot of people and they've got nothing bad to say about the shop.
Okay, thanks, Gulshan. I'm sorry, go on.
We also have a lot of people that are struggling at the moment in the community that don't have money when they come to the shop, that need milk or bread just to keep them going till the next day. You know, we help those that are needy as well. So I'd just like to say, we're not just there to serve people, we also help the community as well when it's needed. We also do lifestyle, which is we sell cheap stuff that is affordable for the people living in the community.
Okay, thank you, Gulshan.
Okay.
Thank you, Gulshan. Now, Chair.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you, Gulshan. Now, Chair, just to clarify, in terms of where we are, with all of this, we've seen varying objections based on the licensing objectives. We're demonstrating what's being done in terms of crime and disorder. We've got CCTV. We don't allow loitering around the premises. Premises are kept clean. There is respect for the owners who actually have this. In terms of public safety, that's concerned more with clubs in terms of overcrowding, any fire issues there. There is a flat above, and that has a separate panic alarm. Also, as well, all the licensing legislation has been met. Mr. Everton Williams is of good character. There is no music coming from the shop in terms of any form of public nuisance whatsoever. And in terms of interested parties, there's no noise, threats to community safety. There is no loitering allowed. There is CCTV. Littering, the shop's clean, but in terms of a licensee's responsibility, all those are observed. There's no odor or smoke or lights coming from the shop. Now, importantly, these objections which have been received, I've already sought clarification on them. West Midlands Police have made a representation objecting. Now, I do need to bring something to the committee's attention, and I make no apologies for this. In the past 12 months, 4 Black enterprises have made applications for licenses or planning applications. They have all received objections on the same basis. The African Village on Lascelles Road, Barker Street, the Observatory Pub or former Observatory Pub in Hunters Road, the a building in Wilson Road, which was planning, and now this. And one common thread is these are all Black enterprises, and all we hear objections about are antisocial behavior. And as one person has put, Elga Hostrom, she's actually talked about drugs and dubious behavior. We are bordering on a stereotypical view of when Black-owned businesses apply to the council. Now, I'm not accusing any councillor or the council of this. I am drawing it to your attention, and you can draw whatever inference you wish to make from the representations. West Midlands Police have not detailed any representation whatsoever. I have cause to speak. I know PCSO Capello's on, but I went and spoke to the Inspector the inspector rather, for Peribar, and he has assured me that he doesn't know anything about any issues in Church Vale, and I've drawn and raised these concerns with his attention at a slur against a man's character, because representation 3, and she's not on today to be questioned, and no, sorry, representation 4, she's actually talked about residents have complained about dubious activities involving drugs to 43 Church Vale. That is clearly a slur on Mr. Williams's character. But also as well, that is discrimination, because why is it when a black person makes an application, straight away an objection involves drugs, antisocial behavior or violence? Clearly that's wrong. Mr. Wright, although he is on, Mr. Wright has not outlined his objections in his letter, but he's here, so we should be allowed to question him and West Midlands Police. Councillor Hussein, the local ward councillor, has never visited the store, and indeed I would have thought he would have gone there and introduced himself to his constituent, and before writing this letter of objection, but clearly he hasn't, and that should be weighted appropriately. He talks about HMOs and vulnerable people. That HMO is not the fault of the Vale store. Helga Holstrom writes in her capacity as chair of Birchfield Neighbourhood Forum, but we note that on Facebook, their last meeting was November 2017. So where has she got this information from to make this objection? There's no reference to a date of meeting. Mr. Williams was never called to a meeting to talk about his application. And indeed, that's outweighed by the 300 signatures that we have. Then we've got this objection from John Rosie. He's here. We should be afforded the ability to question him on this. However, he talks about attracting largely ne'er-do-wells. What is a ne'er-do-well? I have to question that, because this is a black business, and what is a ne'er-do-well? Make no apologies for referring to that either. In conclusion, Chair, Mr. Williams is of good character. West Midlands Police have never been there. These objections which have been raised, no one has actually visited Mr. Williams to find out what his plans are whatsoever. We've got blatant objections coming in based on what is happening elsewhere. We have this issue about black enterprise in the Peribar constituency as well, where objections are made on various footings and many unjustified. Just for the record, the observatory, I know that matter has been dealt with in the courts, and I know also that the Wilson Road matter, which was planning, was overturned by officers because the planning decision had no legal foundation. Now, the facts are, at the end of the day, providing this shop is not participating in antisocial behavior, selling of illegal alcohol, that the character of the licensee is above board. He fully understands the licensing regulations, and that he is promoting the licensing objectives by having closed circuit television, by ensuring there is no alcohol sales to anyone underage, by ensuring as well alcohol is not sold in the middle of the night to someone who is drunk, by observing antisocial behavior, and he is prepared to report that to the police. And the shop and the triangle is covered by CCTV. That only enhances public safety of people walking late at night anyway in the Church Vale area. This is a decently run store, and as far as we are concerned, all representations are without foundation, and the committee should give consideration to granting this license. I don't know, in summary, if Mr. Williams or Miss Baig has anything else to say before I hand back to you, Chair.
Okay, I think...
I don't think they have, so thank you very much.
That's fine. You've answered that question. Thank you very much, Mr. Jaddy. That was very helpful. And thank you to the representations you brought in from your colleagues. We've got now questions from members. So let me go to Councillor Martin Straker-Wells. Councillor Straker-Wells, do you want to ask any questions?
Thank you, Chair. I apologise in advance for any strange noises. My roof is being repaired, and there's very little control I have over the kinds of things that are being done. I mean, the main question for me really is to Bishop Jaddu is roughly what percentage of alcohol sales would be expected to be made, say, beyond 11 o'clock? I think you've given us some idea about the clientele that's likely to come, which is people who perhaps need to buy provisions late at night. You referred to the CCTV and the tidy front, but I would want to know: would it be possible to guarantee that there will be no disturbance with the extension of the hours to what is a largely residential area? Sorry about this, but I'm trying to get the questions in before the banging starts again.
No problem at all, Councillor. Thank you very much. Let me ask Ms. Begg just to give us the percentages. Gulshan, are you there?
Hello, hi there.
Okay, we can hear you.
I would say it's about 15%, because a lot of the people, we don't really sell a lot of alcohol at night. Only probably maybe when the weekend it might be 20%, but in a week, not really a lot, about 10%.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor, in terms of residents, there are varying areas of the city now, including the city centre, where there are 24-hour stores that sell alcohol, and there's a lot more antisocial behaviour outside those than there is actually in the neighbourhoods. Now, in terms of nuisance, there is no music being played in the shop. Mr. Williams has run a very strict and tight ship over the past 12 years. And I'm sure if the police had objections based on anything to do with the store directly, those would have been articulated in their objections. Mr. Williams operates a no loitering policy, and he's not frightened to move people on either. And that's an assurance, and coupled with the CCTV, and in my meeting with Mr. Williams, he has given me an assurance. Should there be any issues whatsoever and he can't deal with those issues, then clearly he would have to seek assistance from the police. But that's only in line with his responsibilities as a licensee in any case. And in terms of, the general upkeep of the area is of pretty decent standard. But there is no form of antisocial behaviour whatsoever associated with this store, and I don't believe that would be the case moving forward. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Beecham.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, several things really. The concern that you are going to be looking at as far as the extended hours goes would take a different form from what you would normally have during the day, I would suspect. And I just want to get the nuts and bolts clear as to how you propose to deal with working through the night, the DPS, who's in charge, have they got all the records straight, and the 4 principles of licensing, the children and that sort of thing. If you could run through what you feel would have to be done to take this 24 hours on and alter your modus operandi to suit.
Thank you, Councillor. I did respectfully cover some of those in my opening, but clearly, just to elaborate, we're talking about a licensee with 12 years experience in an area which some could argue that has issues. And there have been no issues whatsoever associated with this store. So we're not dealing with a brand new application. We're dealing with someone who's already there. Merely this is to extend hours. We can't foresee any issues of antisocial behavior there. Now, in terms of crime and disorder, that is really concerned with the breach of licensing conditions, the licensee being involved in criminality or antisocial behavior. Now, clearly, in addition to that, Mr. Williams ensures that there's a no loitering policy. So no one can actually come to that shop. They have to buy and leave. And that's the long and short of it. I've known, some people would operate a policy, even if people are playing their car radio loud at night, they'd ask them to turn it down. We're not saying that's happened, because that's not happened. And if it did happen, then clearly there would be objections from local residents in terms of that. We must also remember that there is this 300 residents are supporting this application also. In terms of public safety, the main one here is the fire issue for the flat above, which has a separate alarm, and that was actually cleared with the fire service last week. And so the fire service, just for the record, councillor, are the only people who have actually visited the premises. In terms of the, there's no issue through drying. Health and safety, we've ensured that in front of the shop front is clear. People can gain access in and out of the shop. The prevention of public nuisance, there hasn't been any for 12 years, and we don't anticipate there to be any moving forward. And in terms of litter and noise, as we said, no noise from the premises. And importantly as well, in terms of litter, councillor, every single road in this city is absolutely filthy at the moment, to be brutally honest. And however, in front of this shop, it's absolutely spotless because he actually takes action to deal with that. And just for the record, for people who do not buy alcohol from his shop during the day and they go into the triangle, Mr. Williams will go into the triangle and pick up any rubbish and ensure that's disposed of himself. It also, as well, in addition to that, should the shop be granted a 24-hour license, he would have a terms of use of the shop on the window telling people about their conduct to shop there at night as well. So to assure you, Councillor Beesham, every single step would be taken to minimize any potential disruption to residents. And I can tell you now, 11 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night, there aren't no disruptions to residents anyway.
If I may, Chairman.
Yes.
Can you also tell me the way the shop will run, who will be there in these hours, the DPS, the line to the police if anything goes wrong, just the general running of it?
The general running of the shop, the licensee will take responsibility for the running of the shop at night. And he's fully aware also of his obligations and responsibilities, but he would be the one responsible for the running of the shop at night. And he's fully aware of his responsibilities in terms the shop is fully alarmed. So, and he has no issues whatsoever in alerting the police should that be required. And also as well, the flat upstairs, just for the record, has a separate alarm system for the person upstairs as well. So should be there any issues whatsoever, there would be calls in for the authorities. But in terms of the whole running of the business, the way in which the business has been running for the past 12 years, which is a testament for itself, there would be no issues in terms of moving the business forward because it's just extending the hours only. So everything that is in place will remain in place, and we seek to enhance that as well moving forward.
And as far as the staffing goes, what are you saying the staffing would be?
The licensee himself would be responsible for the night running of the premises, and he'd have other staff during the day, just like any other premises. But the nighttime running, he would take control of that.
All on his own?
Well, that's to be assessed. The shop has got CCTV, so the shop can be monitored remotely in any case. And if he does require 2 members of staff,
can I cut in?
Yep.
Can I cut in for a second?
Sure.
And he has access to security from my security firm that works with me. So there's always got security around the place. All right. That's SIA badged security.
And that's only if required, councillor. So
yeah,
we don't.
Yeah.
Only if required.
It as a waste of time most of the time. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And to be honest, councillor, if it's a condition from this committee that security is there at night, then we're quite happy to meet that.
Okay.
The other one was what advances have the police made as far as coming and checking and the link between yourselves and the police?
To be honest, Councillor, the police have not visited the premises. I did check with Mr. Williams. The only contact he's had from any statutory authority has been the fire brigade regarding the alarm upstairs. The police have not visited it. Just for completeness, the police have not visited the premises. And that's what Mr. Williams tells me. The local councillor has not visited the premises. He has not been invited to the neighbourhood forum meeting, and no one's visited him whatsoever. Even the licensing enforcement have not visited him in order to ascertain any additional information prior to making their representations. Hope that helps.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Beecham. A couple of questions from me, Mr. Jadia. Do you know who is the designated premises supervisor? As you know, licensing law requires that there is a DPS, as they're called. Have you got the name? I mean, I can ask licensing; they'll have the record. If you haven't got it.
Let me just double check. It's either Everton. Sorry about this, Chair. It's either Everton or Miss Begg. Which one is it?
Sorry, it's Mr. Parmanand, which is he's a designated Mr. Parmanand. And then you also got Mr. Williams as well.
Mr. Parmanand.
That's right.
There's only one. Okay, there's one
Mr.
DPS.
Parmanand.
Okay. Now, Mr. Dadu, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to comment on what the police are likely to say, because we don't normally have cross-examination here. And now, this doesn't mean I'm endorsing what they say here, but I'm looking at their statement at page 33 on our bundle. I'll just read that to you so you can comment on it.
Yeah.
They say that, well, I quote, "Close to the shop is a traffic island called the Churchvale Triangle, which was a drinking area with benches and empty cans, bottles dumped, etc. After working with Birmingham City Council residents and by increasing patrols to the area, we were able to stop the location becoming a problem, and the triangle became a no drinking area." They then say if 24-hour sales of alcohol at this location was to be allowed, this could lead to drinking at the location to return, as few people would be around and neighbourhood officers also would be off duty. So that's what police are saying they're worried about if the hours were extended from the current hours to 24/7. Would you like to comment on that?
I had a conversation with Inspector Nicholas Hill regarding this application and the police objections. And to be fair, he was unable to substantiate what these objections were. I drew to his attention the labeling of black businesses in terms of when they apply for anything to do with licensing or planning, as I've outlined, and I've had to raise this as a concern with him. In terms, this is all about the conduct of the premises. The social issues within that area, Mr. Williams has played his part in dealing with the social issues in the area as well. In addition to this, there is CCTV that covers what is known as the triangle. Now, this is a fear from the police, but it's not a fact. And we're talking about premises which have been there for 12 years. Now, we know there are bigger problems in Broad Street, in Digbeth, where women have been raped, people have been murdered. We don't see anyone trying to block business in Digbeth, in Broad Street, in Holloway Head, for example. Now, clearly, for the police to bring this objection the way in which they did, with no foundational evidence, Chair. Now, we've got foundational evidence that the residents are in favour of this. Unfortunately, we're not able to formally present it, but that document does exist. And the clerk said that the clerk actually said that we can't present it to you, but that is there, and that's from local residents. And the local residents actually outweigh any objections from West Midlands Police. The bottom line is this: no evidence of antisocial behaviour from the Vale store. No evidence of drug dealing, which someone's tried to raise, and I find that absolutely abhorrent. Basically discriminatory, because a black person, because you've got a business, doesn't mean you're associated with drugs. I've got to be as blunt as that. In terms of selling alcohol to underage children, that doesn't happen. In terms of noise nuisance from there, that doesn't happen. And in terms of littering and any smell culminating from that store, that doesn't happen either. Now, in any area, the point I'm making, there are issues, no matter where you go in this city, there are issues. And the important point is that I'm making to this committee today is that we can't tar everyone with the same brush. And with the Commonwealth Games coming in Birmingham, the whole demographic is changing and the whole lifestyle of people are changing. And all this application is about is to give people the opportunity who are going home from work late, the opportunity to pop into their local convenience store and purchase at will whatever they may wish to purchase. And this is one of the reasons as well why Mr. Williams will be in charge at night.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jadu. That is your time, and thank you for that comprehensive presentation. Now, I'm going to move on to the other submissions and representations, I should say. And so the next one is from West Midlands Police, Mr. Taj.
Thank you, Chair. West Midlands Police are concerned with this application's proposed variation and the impact granting this extension of hours will have on the successful promotion of the licensing objectives, in particular to crime and disorder and public nuisance. The Vale Stores is located in a residential area, itself attached to a row of residential properties, and directly across the road are a set of houses. There's a handful of small businesses located close by on Robert Road. They consist of a chip shop, hairdressers, and 2 convenience stores. One of those convenience stores also has a license to sell alcohol, this being at a reduced time of 7 AM till 9 PM. There are a number of licensed convenience stores located within a 2-mile radius of this store. None of these stores are licensed beyond 11 PM at night and are also located in residential areas, similar to the Vale stores. These can be found on Hampstead Road, Putney Road, and Grosvenor Road. Although the Vale stores is licensed from 7 AM till 11 PM at night, its current advertised times vary on different days. The advertised times show only one day where it opens from 7 AM, and there are no days where the shop stays open beyond 10 PM, which questions the necessity for such an extension of hours when the premises does not open currently to its full licensable allowance at present. The shop may be closing at 10 PM due to lack of demand from the locals at that time of night. If this is the case, the extension of hours could be potentially to attract clientele further away, one who may not be in walk distance and need to drive to the location. This further suggests a nuisance this premises will pose on the residents who stand to benefit in no way from the extension, potentially gaining interrupted sleepless nights. There will be a constant stream of cars frequenting the premises in the early hours, creating noise from the additional traffic, car door slamming, engines starting up, and potential gathering of cars and groups for late night meetups. There's a risk this premises could become a flashpoint for crime and disorder and public nuisance, further driven by the fact it will be the only off-license for some distance allowed to sell alcohol at this late hour. There is a history of alcohol-related issues in this area, from premises previously licensed until the late hours. It is common during the representation period to refer applications to local neighbourhood policing teams for their comments. The team I work with covers all of Birmingham and need to rely on the expert local knowledge and input of the individual neighbourhood teams who have regular engagement within these areas. These applications are seeking to be granted. Overall, they have a more refined knowledge of the area. This provides us with a valuable perspective into the assessment of an application and its ability to promote the licensing objectives. I originally contacted the Sergeant Southern, the neighbourhood sergeant that resides over that area in Handsworth, on November 11th, 2021, when the first application was submitted. This application was subsequently withdrawn and resubmitted at a later date. I made them aware of the proposed variation and if they had any comments or concerns in regards to the application being applied for. Sergeant Southern stated they had concerns and could not support this application and would like to object. To support an objection, Sergeant Southern tasked PC Capella to refer a statement. PC Capella will now go through that statement that he has provided for you. Thank you.
Okay, good morning. In regard the impact statement that was asked to prepare, it was about the historic nature of the area where it used to be. I've worked in this area for over 20 years and know the area and know the people. Historically, where the Vale store is, opposite used to be a pub, which was shut down and was associated with lots of antisocial behaviour. And it was linked to the Triangle area. So in the early doors of neighbourhood policing, one of the target areas within the Birchfield constituency was that Triangle, which was seen to be a sort of magnet to antisocial behaviour, to drinking. A lot of repairing to the location was done, sort of like it was landscaped. A lot of the bench was taken out with the help of the stores opposite existing. Vale stores, yes, it's correct. There is no antisocial behaviour there. We haven't visited there, but we visited the location. I was there last night. The whole area is quiet. It's a quiet residential area. Come back from where it used to be a pub. Say I worked there when it was a pub. It was a busy, bad area, if you like. It's now, say, we've moved on. So 20 years on, we've now moved to a quiet residential area where nothing much goes on. The shops weren't busy. The Vale stores themselves, we have passed, since December, we've been looking at it. And so not visiting the store, but we don't need to. Yeah, they're right. There is no antisocial behaviour ongoing. The reason for us to oppose it is there's no problem now, but in the future, if somebody buys alcohol at 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, that's when you see the increase in antisocial behaviour. That's when the residents phone up and say there's somebody outside drunk, somebody banging a car door, loud music as people shop. Historically, within that, a mile of that location, there was a shop on Villa Road which had a 24-hour drinks licence, which was withdrawn, objected, and we took it away, and that has not got a licence now. It's open 24 hours a day. It's a busy shop. It's on Villa Road. Their footfall is probably, I have a customer every 5 minutes. It's very, very busy. Heathfield Road, which is further down from the Vale Stores location, has a 24-hour licence. Again, over the past 2 years, lots of antisocial behaviour, including some firearms incidents. That shop itself has, because of lack of footfall, lack of customers, and the cost to the business itself, no longer operates 24 hours a day, operates around the same sort of time, 7 till 11, when people are about. I hear what they're saying about people working late night. There are late night shops, 24 hours, but within the neighbourhood itself, we associate our key targets for shops that operate at 24 hours a day because we cannot manage them. And also sometimes the businesses themselves can't manage with the antisocial behaviour that they endure. We support every business in this area. We do support with any sort of support they need from us, whether it be antisocial behaviour, whether it be a persistent customer, it would be somebody outside begging, which we have over the past 2 years seen an increase in. So again, I get what they're saying about, and we like businesses to improve. We like businesses to open in the area. Yeah, the Lowe's Elsley Sandhurst area has picked up since I've been working in it. I've seen actually improvement. I've seen the quality of housing going in, the quality of the neighbours and how they want to live. There is a lot of respect. I get what they're saying about the shop. We have no objection to the shop operating as it is. It's brilliant. Yeah, they don't have any problems. But in the future, if it's open 24 hours a day, we know historically that those problems would increase because not everybody is tolerant of late night, 2 o'clock in the morning, being woken up by antisocial behaviour, drunken. So that's when we perhaps take licences off people. But I say when the government opened up to 24 hours a day licensing, there were a lot of applications. Some were granted. But I say historically, if you look at the ones with 24-hour licence in the area now, there is only one that operates with a licence, that's on the Sower Road. and the one on Villa Road operates 24 hours a day but has no license. And that's the only other one within that location areas. Even in Birchfield, which is not far away as well, there are no 24-hour shops on the Birchfield Road anymore. There was a supermarket there, it was open 24 hours a day. That was linked to antisocial behaviour, and the same has changed its operating procedures now following police warrants on the address. But I say, other than that, that's why we object. We object because we have to be representative of all the residents in the area, and we have to protect them. Neighbourhoods don't work 24 hours a day. Neighbourhood policing finishes around midnight. We go home. We can't cover it. So then what happens then, your response police officers would go to the location. If there is an increase in antisocial behaviour, if this licence application is granted, then if there is an increase in it, a problematic area, we would have to look at then long-term problem solving around that. So that's why we object. It's only because historically we know the problems we have. So in preparation to prevent them, and that's what we're out to do, prevent crime, is why we object. Say we have no objection to the business operating as it is now.
Okay, I think we've got your point. So, Mr. Taj, is that your presentation?
I'll just quickly wrap up with a couple of sentences, if that's all right. Still got a bit of time, I think. So, yeah, so I was saying, I think PCSO Capella's pretty much covered a lot of my points. But I was saying, just to stress the point, regarding the discrimination against application.
I don't want you to repeat all the points he's made. You can sum up at the end. There's 5 minutes to sum up. So if you've anything else you want to say that's new, please say that. But I don't want a repetition of what your colleague has just said.
I think there is some new stuff, but I can actually move it into the summary, which will be fine.
All right. Okay. Thank you for that. Okay. Thank you. I'm now moving to the Licensing Enforcement Officer, Mr. Wright. Mr. Wright.
Thank you, Chair. I fully support the BW licensing plan from the police licensing team and their objections to the licence. My concerns were completely regarding it's a residential area. The premises at present, we agree, we have no issues with it whatsoever the way it operates at present, but we can then be concerned about the people it attracts after 11 o'clock at night if it had a 24-hour licence. It is a residential area. The premise is actually attached to a residential property, and that would concern me having a licence granted in that area. And that's really all I've got to say on it.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So I'll go. We'll get to members' questions after this. But Mr. Rose, are you there?
I am indeed, Chairman.
Okay, it's your opportunity to say something.
Yes, I think members of the committee will be somewhat confused by these very conflicting perceptions articulated by Bishop Jadu and by West Midlands Police. As a civilian, okay, I live 2 streets away, but I do visit that area 3 or 4 times a week to have a look around, partly because I'm involved with a voluntary group which is concerned with trying to keep that bit of Birmingham tidy. As a matter of observation, I find that the Vale stores doesn't seem to operate its existing hours to the full. Quite often during the day, I find it closed. That's okay. But we're talking about a licensing application for alcohol. I've got no problems about somebody who feels the need to buy 2 tins of baked beans at 3 o'clock in the morning. But I do question the need, because bad planning, to purchase alcohol at 2 o'clock in the morning. I note the bit about closed circuit television. It might be nice if the recordings of that were made available to anybody, because it might reveal a light on who is fly tipping in that area. A fairly frequent incidents. And I think that's it. The committee has got to distinguish between these two hugely different perceptions of what's actually happening, and to realise that it is a licensing application for alcohol, not just that the shop wishes to keep open 24 hours a day. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much. And you have a chance to sum up as well in a few minutes, but I'm now going to go to questions from colleagues. So Councillor Beecham, do you have any questions to any of the submissions we've just heard?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you very much. As was being said to us, 10 or 15% of the traffic through the place is alcohol. Is it so important that this alcohol should be there at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in the morning, that you would want to extend your license to suit that? Is there any?
Well, it's questions. We need to put questions to the police and the licensing enforcement. John Rose. So, do you have any questions for people who've just spoken?
Yes, well, I was going to ask, with the results of these places that have closed down within the area, have they seen a significant difference in the area due to less alcohol being available?
So I think that's one for Mr. Taj and his colleague. Mr. Taj?
Hi there, councillors. Do you want to answer this?
Yeah, I'd say, as regard the establishments that had 24 hours licensing, yes, because we reduced the hours on one particular business, and because of the other hours of the other shops voluntarily reduced their hours, yes, we have seen a drop in antisocial behaviour. And all of that area is covered by what's called an impact area. And we have seen a reduction in antisocial behaviour in the impact areas. I'm saying that the Vale Stores is just outside the impact area zone. But yes, councillor, by reducing the hours of alcohol sales, you do see a drop in ASB and it calls for service. So it is conducive of good neighbourhoods.
You don't
okay, thank you.
You don't think that allowing this place to have floated to the top, if you like, with being able to keep control, that they would lose control by going into 24 hours?
Okay, so the controls, with 24-hour shops, usually the controls are that the business will have control of the CCTV, give us access whenever we go, when we have a call to service, say a drunken fight or a damage to the shop. Went to one this week, not far away from Vale Stores, on the corner of Churchill Road, where they had they've got a license as well, but they operate within normal time, 7 till 8. I think they are open. That shop, immediate access to CCTV. We're able to identify the person causing the antisocial behaviour. In fact, it was criminal damage to the shop. That's it. The ones that we shut down were less than helpful coming forward when we wanted to view the CCTV. Hence, they give us that sort of evidence that they're not progressing, they're not cooperating. Yeah, businesses, when they get 24 hours, are very good. They have to keep it up. That's what I would say. The use of SIA controlled doormen around bank holidays was one of the conditions we used to put in. And because bank holidays, you see an increase in alcohol sales. But as I do question, who wants to buy alcohol 3 o'clock in the morning? And they tend to be the people that maybe are drunk or come from a club and need more alcohol. And they're the problem. They're the people that do cause us problems.
Okay,
thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Straker-Wells.
Thank you, Chair. And a link has been made between the sale of alcohol and antisocial behaviour, particularly late at night. And you made reference to 2 pubs or shops which have closed as a result of that. The question I want to raise is whether this is likely in a residential area. Are you actually saying it is more likely to happen regardless of where the area is? It might be close to the Vale, it might be a residential area, but are you saying this is inevitable if you have late night opening and sales of alcohol? And the other side thing that I wanted to ask you about, you suggested that people from outside the area would be most interested in purchasing alcohol if all the other shops were not selling beyond, say, 11 o'clock. Again, is it inevitable that, in your view, that it would only be people who are likely to be perpetrators of antisocial behaviour? And bear in mind, the shop has a clean record to date. Thank you.
Well, yeah, it is only a view, but I say, yeah, sale of alcohol at 3 o'clock in the morning tends to be people who may be alcohol dependent. So there are a few people around the area who are alcohol dependent. So we do visit them and we do try and get support and help. And there are a number of hostels around the area that support people with alcohol as a dependency. Those people, yeah, they do go out and seek alcohol at 3 o'clock in the morning, at midnight. We do see that, and they tend to then drink just outside of the location. Yeah, they buy the alcohol from the shop, and the shop, yeah, tells you you're not allowed to drink it on site. They will go out and they will drink it as soon as they can. So opening alcohol containers just across the road in the triangle would seem ideal to them. And that was used to happen in the past until we did a lot of work around that triangle area. At the moment, it doesn't happen. There are certain times of the year when it would happen. It is usually during bank holidays or sort of celebrations, if you like. But yeah, alcohol dependency people will seek out where they can buy their alcohol from at any time of the day because they're dependent on it.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. If I may, just one detail. Forgive me if you've already covered this, sir, but did you give me the impression that it is the only shop in the locality that would be having a 24-hour license?
Well, yes, it is. The nearest one to that is Sower Road, I believe. Yes, I am correct because I've worked there a long time.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you for those questions. Okay, so we now move on to the closing submissions. Now, this is an opportunity to sum up for everybody who's spoken, and it's in reverse order. So the applicant will go last. And so I'm coming back to Mr. Rose. Mr. Rose, is there anything else you want to add to what your comments to us? Anything else you want to tell us?
So I thought Councillor Weeks' question about alcohol dependence was a significant factor. And Mr. Bishop Jadu will realise that that's perhaps what I referred to by ne'er-do-wells. And my sympathy goes to them and they need help. And the best help is not to increase access.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for that point. So I now go to Mr. Wright from Licensing and Enforcement. Mr. Wright, is there anything you want to add to sum up?
Nothing more I really need to add. Just to sum up, I just have concerns that what the 24-hour licence would bring to the area, who it's going to attract, and the possible antisocial behaviour from that. And the history shows from licensing enforcement that when we grant a 24-hour licence, it does seem to attract a lot of people to that area with cars looking for alcohol. So that was my final point.
Okay, thank you. And then to Westminster's Police, to Mr. Taj, to sum up. Mr. Taj.
Thank you, Chair. We've heard the reason for its application was after speaking with locals about the working hours. So they want to be open 24 hours to benefit hospital workers, etc., etc. you wonder if that is the real cause, then why they're not open later at the moment. Now, we understand about licensing laws, they can't sell alcohol beyond 11 o'clock, but the shop itself could remain open, selling other stuff that aren't licensable, so they could have benefited the working hours in that way. They've chose not to do that. There's been reference of discrimination with this application, which, let's remember, there is a premise license already at this location, so it's not a completely new application. To reiterate, the police don't have an issue with the premise with its current working hours of 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. We've objected the extension of these hours as what's been detailed in these representations about how it could attract antisocial behaviour and cause public nuisance to the locals. There's been no additional conditions offered with this application, but at the defence of the applicant, there's none that we would see as suitable in reality that would make this application uphold the licensing objectives. There has been mention for one of the council's questions of how the premise will run, which just doesn't sound proportional or realistic. And it's been mentioned about the license holder will be working nighttime all the time, which seems a bit bizarre that they could be there 24/7. And then there's been mentioned now that there could be SIA security. That was not put forward in the application in the original instance. So yeah, just a bit confused with how the running of the application would go if it was granted. But yeah, and in the conditions, there's been no new conditions, just regurgitated conditions that are already on the license or practices required by law. It's a stance of West Midlands Police that the premises are located in such a residential area that there's no way it could uphold the licensing objectives, and therefore it should be objected to. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Taj. That's West Midlands Police's summing up. And so now, Bishop Jaddy, we come to you for the final word, your opportunity to sum up. You've got about 5 minutes to do that. So back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair, for that. I need to draw to the committee several items in summary. The first one is that this is an existing premises, as the West Midlands Police have said. Now, PCO Capello draws to inferences and past experiences. We as a community have past experiences as well, and we're told to move on from that. The content of the character of Mr. Williams is not in question. The content of how he runs his business has not been called into question. Heathfield Road is still a 24-hour shop. It may not operate, but it still is. In terms of Soho Road, that shop is there also. Importantly, in terms of that, we're talking, I think PCSO Capello talked about not having access to CCTV. That's why licenses were withdrawn. They've never been to the Val stores for CCTV footage. So clearly, that's about the content of the character of the individual that holds the license. And clearly, over the past 12 years, Mr. Williams has demonstrated that. It is not for, I don't know if it's Sergeant Taj or PC Taj, forgive me, but it's not for him to decide who's staffing the store either. Clearly, a provision will be made. Mr. Williams has confirmed to me, I didn't have it confirmed before, that there would be 2 people working at night. He would be responsible, which is what I said in my presentation. He would be present and responsible. He doesn't need to be working in the shop 24 hours, 24/7. So I don't know where Mr. Taj got that from, but he got that totally wrong, because I said that he would be doing the night shift, which would be 11 till 7, or he would supervise a night shift. If it's a condition that this committee says you need to have SIA security, then fine, because SIA security would deal with anyone who pulls up, any cars making noise, anyone loitering outside the shop. And also as well, I think Mr. Rose makes a very valid point about fly tipping, for which at the weekend I saw a nice pile of rubbish which had been fly tipped, and it would actually deal with that issue if that shop was open, because clearly CCTV's on. Importantly as well, there is a human presence there also. In terms of drunken people, it is Mr. Williams's, and I've got a license as well, believe it or not, from many moons ago. It is the responsibility of the licensee, even in an off-licensing setting, if they see someone who is already intoxicated, it is their responsibility to refuse to sell them the alcohol. It's as simple as that. PCSO Capello talks about people who are alcohol dependent. The sale of alcohol ultimately is at the discretion of the licensee. So it's not a right of the person who wants to buy a bottle of cider at 3 o'clock in the morning. It's not their right to get it, because clearly a licensee has to be responsible in terms of attracting people. Now, I talked about discrimination for the simple reason other applications made within that constituency by Black Enterprise have been objected for the same reasons. And these reasons are antisocial behavior, potentiality of drug dealing, as mentioned in one of the letters of representation, which is foundationalist. People packing up the place with cars, for example. Now, it sounds familiar from the African village, it sounds familiar from the former observatory, and it sounds familiar here. Now, PCSO Capello says as well, they've been in the area, but they saw no reason to visit the store. Then I thought, in terms of community relations and building bridges with the police, I thought it is only the right thing to do is to actually go in and speak to the store, understand how it's run. They didn't bother to do that. Importantly as well, his inspector, Nicholas Hill, hasn't got a clue what PCSO Capello has presented to you today. And ultimately, he is the responsible authority for policing in Perry Barr constituency. The fact that police officers are not on at night, or the naval team goes off at midnight, does not negate that the world stops. And that's the important thing here. The world does not stop. It is the responsibility of the licensee to ensure that not just promoting the licensing objectives, but also that he adheres to the conditions of being a licensee, which Mr. Williams has done for the past 12 years. Now, near to Wells, I do appreciate Mr. Rose's clarification on what he meant. However, because someone's alcohol dependent, I'm going to put my bishop's hat on. We're all God's children, but we have a responsibility to show them the way, the truth, and the light. And I don't see Mr. Williams taking advantage of people who are alcohol dependent. I hope I've dealt with all of these issues which have been raised. And I would urge the committee to seriously consider this application and consider granting it. Should the committee decide to attach conditions to this, then let's attach the conditions. Importantly, Birmingham City Centre has 24-hour shops that sells alcohol. They are now in residential areas, Chair. Broad Street has flats, houses just behind them. Holloway Head has houses and flats directly above where these 24-hour shops are based. Digbeth also has 24-hour shops. And in terms of that, the control, the licensee does bear a level of responsibility. And the licensee in this case is prepared to meet any conditions that have been placed. It's important to note the police just blanketly objected without even going to visit Mr. Williams to ascertain what provisions he's putting in place. And maybe, just maybe, that would have been a prudent way forward. In terms, finally, of Councillor Hussain and also Elder Holstrom, I would ask respectfully that those objections be disregarded. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to everyone who's contributed today, and particularly to Mr. Jadid for guiding us through the application and the other persons making representations. So I now ask all parties to leave the MS Teams meeting, and the members, the committee lawyer and the committee manager will go into the private session while the subcommittee makes its decision. You'll be notified of the decision of the subcommittee within 5 working days. Colleagues, we'll just take a 10-minute comfort break. So let's reconvene at 20 to 12 in the private session. Thank you very much. That is the end of the public session. Thank you for your attendance today and your assistance to the committee.
Thank you.